Hello, everybody. How are you? This is another Monday on Graduate Power. This is Dean Morote from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I'm the Dean of the Graduate Studies, and we have two invitees today that will be talking about human rights. Today is a day that we're talking about the Masters in Human Rights. It's a so creative Masters that we have few in the country. So we're looking forward to talking to you. So let me invite. We have Tatiana Scantlebury. She is our alumni from the Master of Human Rights, and she will tell us what we're doing with that Masters. And we have also our professor and director of the Masters of Human Rights, Professor Charlotte Walter Sake. So let me just give you the correct introduction for our two speakers today. Tatiana Scantlebury is a proud alumna of the Masters of Arts in Human Rights programs. She serves in the Women Empowerment Research Associate with the Hunger Project Global Office, monitoring evaluation and learning programs teams, and as an associate director of the National Vista program at Hunger Free America. She led research on gender-focused strategies in Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Ethiopia, India, Mexico, Bangladesh, and Uganda. So she will tell us about all her work on Hunger Project. And we have also our professor and director, Dr. Charlotte Walker Sake. She is associate professor in the Department of African Studies in John Jay College of Criminal Justice. She got her PhD in history from Yale University in 2009, and her principal research areas include human rights, Christianity, family law, and gender rights in Africa. She is now writing a book on security and violence in Central Africa on the 20th century. She has conducted field work across Central and Southern Africa and works with African immigrants and refugees. So it's very interesting background that you have. So let me just begin. I was in Africa, not in those specific countries, but I was last year in Africa, in South Africa, and visited, I think, stop 2 or 3 places. So Tatiana, could you tell us a bit more about your background, how you choose to take human rights? Tell us about what are you doing, everything.
Sure. So hello, good night, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm very happy to be here and also to speak on my experience with the Human Rights Program. So my journey began currently working as the Hunger Project's Women Empowerment Research Associate. Also, I am the Associate Director to the AmeriCorps Vista program with Hunger Free America. So during my time with the Hunger Project, my focus was really on the women empowerment programs within all of those amazing program countries that were mentioned earlier. I led research focusing on what does women empowerment look like within the epicenters in Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, India, Mexico, and Bangladesh, and Uganda as well. I led interviews and spoke with different experts who are currently in the field. Now, during a time where we're living in a pandemic, this was a bit difficult, so we had to do this over Zoom. And all of this led up into a conversation where it was a big discussion on what does women empowerment look like? What are they currently doing during a time of COVID? And how can they increase their women empowerment strategies? Particularly one place that I really adored in the work that they're doing for advocacy was in India, where their advocacy in trying to get women elected in the political arena was encouraged heavily by the power of women and their voices. So that was something that was really interesting for me to learn as a young person, especially during this political area. So currently now moving from that particular area, I work with Hunger Free America, where I serve as the associate director to the National Vista program. And during my time there, I basically focus on the AmeriCorps Vista. So they serve nationally throughout all of the United States at different programs trying to end hunger. And this is really interesting because during a time where we're living in a pandemic, it's really difficult for people to get access to food. So the mission of Hunger Free America, the Hunger Free America is basically to end hunger and also address what hunger looks like in a national setting, and ending poverty as well, while also building the capacities of these issues within other local organizations who are trying to end hunger. So that is a bit about my 2 roles and what I do right now. Thank you.
That's very interesting role, especially that we are in the pandemic, but now you need to work far away to try to change the world. So that would be interesting. I will ask you more questions, but I want to ask Professor Charlotte Walker said to tell us about the program. I mean, what they teach in this program that is so interesting, and how somebody occurs to teach Mastering Human Rights.
Sure. So our program is really trying to give a lot of students who are interested in public service the tools to be able to understand what is human rights law. So what is the infrastructure for human rights globally? Where do we get the idea for human rights? How do we implement human rights? And how do we get from basically the philosophy of human rights to the implementation of human rights? So that's what we're trying to teach in this program, is how to not just, not necessarily or only be an activist, but how to do a day-to-day job in implementing human rights, whether it's anti-poverty, education, disability rights, advocacy, or activism. And so the program has many courses that are theoretically based in philosophy and law, and then other courses that are based more in implementation, like courses that are a little bit more like nonprofit management or sort of organizational effectiveness. How do you work within an organization to achieve a goal, such as how do you write a policy paper? How do you craft a policy paper so that you state the problem, demonstrate what other policies are, and then propose a new reformed policy. So some of these sort of practical know-how based learning skills we think are important to pair with some of the more theoretical learning about human rights institutions, law, and philosophy.
So what kind of jobs or students have after they finish the program?
So there's basically 3 main areas. Many of our students work in the public sector for offices like the Department of Education's Office for Disability Rights. So that's sort of one example. Or they work in the New York City government in public schools, trying to help families achieve or sort of access resources in the public schools for medical, dental care, or food assistance. So they work in sort of Department of Education, New York City school system. Those are 2 common areas of jobs. Another area is nonprofit. So students working at the Bronx Defenders or the Brooklyn Defenders. These are legal aid organizations that help with people facing eviction, asylum seekers, people who need legal counsel because they face criminal charges. So people work for organizations like Legal Aid, the Bronx Defenders, or Brooklyn Defenders. So nonprofits that are engaged in human rights advocacy through sort of legal advocacy. A third avenue for students is going on to further research. So some people really want to be professors of human rights or professors of law. And so they go on to do either another master's degree in public policy, or sometimes they do PhDs in political science. But I would say that the principal organizations are, nonprofit, state government, state and local government, further research. And then some students go on to, to work in what you call like charitable foundations. So they work for large organizations that are, actually have money and are giving it to nonprofits or to school systems or things like that. So they work in, foundations and philanthropies.
Wow, so there is a lot of things to do with the Masters on Human Rights. So Tatiana, tell us about, in what moment in your life you say, I want to do a Masters on Human Rights? Explain us the process of your source to say, oh, that's what I want to do in my life.
Sure, I'm so happy that you asked that. So I am a native New Yorker, born and raised in the Bronx, of Barbadian descent. So my family is and comes from the Caribbean. So I earned my bachelor's degree in criminal justice at a historically black college, Delaware State University. So my journey to the master's program started and sparked there in undergrad when I took a course of comparative criminal justice, where we were focusing on the criminal justice system in London, where we did a study abroad. And I was looking at genocide and transnational crime and women's rights and what that looked like over there compared to here in the US. So during my time in London, I knew I wanted to be abroad. I knew I wanted to study human rights. I just didn't know what that looked like for myself later on in life. So I took some time during my senior year trying to figure out what was next for me. While all of my colleagues were applying for school, I was lost for a bit, not trying to figure out what was next for me. I always had a plan and I didn't have one at this time. So with the guidance of my professors, I was able to look and see what are some things that are out there for me. And I came across John Jay. And surprisingly, this was a school that I was intending to go to before I went off to grad school. I was actually applied for John Jay and I realized I wanted to go away to school. So I applied for John Jay. At the same time, I also applied to become an AmeriCorps member. And I also applied to be an intern with Congressman Eliot Engel, who focused on, at that time, international relations. He was the chair of the international relations when he was in the Senate. So again, I was really at a roadblock in trying to figure out what was my next steps. I had multiple options, and turns out I got accepted to all three. So before going into grad school, I interned with Congressman Eliot Engel, finished off that internship. Then directly after, I got into the AmeriCorps program through Public Allies, where I served as an AmeriCorps member at Center for Court Innovation and focusing on criminal justice reform with the Youth Justice Board. And then directly after, I was given the opportunity to go to grad school. And from there, I knew that human rights was my field and what I wanted to do. And it was interesting because John Jay was the only school I applied to, and I got in. So I knew that this was destined for me. It was written in the things that I needed to get done for my next step. So I'm happy that I was able to be a part of the program.
That's amazing, to all that journey about taking you to human rights. Now tell us about that. Once you went to John Jay and you entered, tell us about do you remember any professor or class that was your favorite that you can tell us for the future studies?
Yes.
You have to tell Professor.
Well, I would say all of my courses that I took during my time in John Jay had really instilled what human rights looked like for me. Granted that I had a little bit of more of experience in undergrad, I knew that these were the courses I need to take. So I would say, let's say, I really want to say all of them. There wasn't a class that I did not enjoy. The first one would probably be International Criminal Law, and that was with Dr. Susan Kang. And that was one of my favorites just because I knew I wanted to study international criminal law, international human rights law, and knowing that law school would definitely or somehow be in my future. And that course itself really propelled my interest in genocide, in looking at war crimes, and knowing that if this was my next step, I would definitely need to be a little bit more vigorous in reading. But other than that, all of the courses really taught me so much about human rights. During my time as a graduate student, I also participated in the United Nations Model UN team. And again, being a full-time student, full-time AmeriCorps member, and also doing this as an extracurricular really taught me more about the United Nations and what it looks like to be a delegate, and also to be a diplomatic in the way that I want to be within this particular field. So that opportunity alongside all of my courses helped me to become the person I am today within this program. So thank you.
That is amazing. You know, that shows the quality of the program and how much the professors care, because every agreement that they need to do with institutions like the United Nations is a lot of time and effort. Dr. Walker said, could you tell us about all professors? Tell us about, what they're doing. Because I know you have full-time adjuncts. Tell us about their expertise.
Sure. So we have a couple of people who are our clinical faculty or adjuncts. These all have experience in human rights. So they either are sort of partnering with the United Nations in development programs, or they have experience in foundation work, or they have experience somehow with international human rights. So our own core faculty, like Dr. King, who's a political scientist, and myself, I'm a historian of modern Africa. So, we usually are grounded in the disciplines, but all of our clinical faculty have working experience working in human rights. And so that's usually very, very helpful. We also try and have guest lectures by people in nonprofit space, people from everything from Planned Parenthood, which is, a large, pro civil rights. So the idea of, reproductive rights as human rights and civil rights organization. They're, very much political. They're a very political organization, and they, firmly believe in reproductive rights as human rights. So we, have, guest speakers from that organization as well as other nonprofits. So we try and do that as much as we can in our courses, because most of our students, the vast majority go into practitioner work. They're human rights practitioners.
How they finish the master? What they do for the final work? They do a comprehensive internship? What they do? Or maybe
they can do a series. They can choose their path. They can do an internship. They can do a thesis, it's very much less common, or they do the capstone course. So the capstone course, HR 750, is most often writing a policy paper. So they learn how to write their own policy paper. When I teach it, that's usually how I teach it, writing their own policy paper, which compares current policies, other proposed policies, and their own vision for policy. So most of our students take the capstone course, otherwise they do a thesis, or they can alternatively do an internship course. None of those are required, they're all chosen. So the master's degree is very much a choose your own adventure. So you can choose one of these completions of the program.
That's excellent. So you can choose. What do you choose, Tatiana? You remember?
I was getting ready to say, I wanted to interject and say, so I decided to do both an internship and a thesis. So my internship was through Legal Hand, where I volunteered, which is also a nonprofit, providing free legal resources to constituents of the Bronx. And that experience in itself taught me a lot about human rights, right? A lot of people don't know what their rights are, knowing that they live in housing and they're getting ready to be evicted. What does that mean? What does the eviction process look like? Or finding housing. That was just really a difficult time for people that were living in the Bronx. We dealt with all different issues, and our motto was, if you have a problem, we will come and solve it for you. And granted, of course, oftentimes we're not able to do everything, but providing the resources was the first thing that helped a person know about their rights. And then my thesis was really based on women empowerment and looking at the number of women of color who were in the United States political system. And that really stemmed from all of the work that I've done in the past and looking at the human rights and also looking at what it means for a woman to be in a political space. So I was really excited about that.
So you did the thesis, the internship, and you did everything.
Tatiana's an overachiever.
Yeah. You say, check, check, check. I want everything here. So that I have a question. People are texting me here asking questions. Let me go 1 second. They're asking how long take the master to finish? How long to?
Should I answer?
No, go ahead. Tell them how long
Okay.
it took, and then I can say how often it was the average. Yeah.
Okay. So because Dr. Walker, I see you guys said I'm an overachiever, I did it in 2 years. And that was the standard for me because I knew that I was doing all these different things. But typically, depending on if you're full-time or part-time, it could take you a little bit longer. But I knew that I wanted to be in and out also while getting the full experience. So yeah, 2 years was for me, and that's free.
Sure. I think 2 years is very average. That's very common. Some people can do it in 18 months, probably 3 semesters. You can do it in 3 semesters, but it can be very difficult to do that if you're working full time. And all of our students, except for 1 or 2 right now we have about 70 students, and I think only 1 or 2 are doing the program full time. The rest are working full time. and many of them have children and families. And so before the pandemic, we had all of our courses in the evenings from 6 to 8 or from 8 to 10. So we have evening classes. Now with everything online, I think it's much more, even more flexible, with Zoom calls just being scheduled according to people's schedules. But I would say that 18 months to 2.5 years, so between 3 semesters and 5 semesters is the norm. Some people take, 6 semesters. I would say that's more on the long end. Taking 3 years would be, again, not uncommon, but just that'd be the longer end. So between 1.5 to 3 years, but 2 years being almost everyone finishes in around 2 years.
Dr. Walker said you also have to tell us that you have now the class online. You will have a new version of the master's completely online.
That's right. We're launching our online master's degree, and we already have a person interested in Sweden. So you can take that master's entirely digitally, so entirely remotely, and all the classes are online, asynchronous. So you log in, complete the coursework, and interact with professors on Zoom without having to be physically present for any of the courses. So many of our students want to come to the United, if they're foreign, they want to come to the United States and take up residency during their master's program and take some in-person courses. So our traditional master's is still going to be most common or most popular, but our online exclusive masters will be for international students who don't want to leave their country, or for domestic students who don't want to leave where they are, or for students who simply just want the flexibility of having entirely online courses.
That will be excellent. So now you can, if you are in New Jersey or you are in Paris, or
yes,
you can take your classes, or in Africa, or any place you want.
Right.
So So Tatiana, tell me, all these countries that you were mentioning, you were working with them remotely, or you visit some of them?
I wish I had the opportunity to. So all of this was done remotely, which was also a different experience for myself because there was time difference. So I found myself up at very early in the morning conducting interviews and having longer conversations. But the experience in itself was worthwhile, knowing that I can have a conversation on an issue that we both see eye to eye on, right? And what is the work that's currently being done over there and what it looks like over here. So yes, it was done remotely. I do wish I had the opportunity to travel.
So how do you do with the language barrier? How do you,
So learning how pronouncing names, I think that was something that we discussed earlier. That was a bit rough for me, and just being also very cognizant that I am learning and letting them know, hey, I would like for you to pronounce your name for me. So dealing with the language barriers, they all spoke English really, really, really well. So even if there was like, one of my interviews, he had needed a translator, but I knew a little bit of Spanish, so I was really excited to like point out words that I knew, but we made it work. And that was just the fun part about it, knowing that we can be in this space, even if there are some differences in language, we're still able to have a conversation, and we're getting the job done.
Wow, that's very nice. That's very nice. Wow, we really having fun. I can see 6:26. So let me ask you, what I would like to ask you is an advice for two groups. For Tatiana, I will ask an advice for students who are already taking the masters, and what would be the next steps to go after. And for Professor Walker said, I would like to ask the advice for new students people who are thinking to come to the masters. So let's begin with Professor Charlotte Walker said, what you advise you will do to new people, new students, new people who say, hey, you know what, I'm considering to take this master's. What would be the first step?
Sure. I think a good first step is just seeing where you think you might want to go. If you really want to go into nonprofit, I would say that you should definitely try and think about this program as a very good springboard into nonprofit. But you might want to take a lot of courses that are engineered towards helping you be kind of good at writing, good at grant writing, good at understanding fundraising landscapes, good at understanding where you might be most effective. What is your background and what are you going to bring to a nonprofit? What are you hoping to get out of this degree that you can take into the nonprofit world? So I suggest kind of for everybody that you think about what you want to get out of the degree, because you can get almost anything you want out of this degree. You can get legal knowledge, you can get management knowledge, you can get kind of the landscape of your professional landscape knowledge. It is a little bit, again, of a choose your own adventure. We have extremely flexible electives. We have very few core courses. And in fact, almost all of our core courses can be substituted for other courses. So we have a lot of course and curricular flexibility. Some students come to us and say, I thought I wanted to go into international relations, but now I want to go into counterterrorism. So they take a lot of courses in criminal justice and international criminal justice and counterterrorism, and they have them count towards their human rights degree. And that's fine too. They want to combine human rights courses with counterterrorism, and you can totally do that. So I want you to look at like all the courses that are offered at John Jay's master's level broadly, and think about if you want to combine human rights with another interest like public administration, criminal justice, international crime, or counter crime or counterterrorism. All of those things are possible. So we definitely have certificates at John Jay in things like transnational organized crime, counterterrorism. We have a certificate in, oh goodness, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but it's kind of like, management and administration. So a lot of students who are in the human rights masters also do certificates, and they can get some of the courses they take in their certificates to count towards the MA. And so I encourage that completely, because I encourage people to use their MA degree and maximize it, maximize it to their own design. I think human rights is such a big tent. It's a really big umbrella. You can really tailor it to what you want to do. And there's really no limit to how you can combine it with other kinds of coursework.
That's excellent. So you can do your own menu of things that you would like to do.
Yeah, we do encourage it. You can treat it like a menu. That's right.
Yeah, I like that. All you can eat.
Yeah, all you can eat. And I encourage that. There's no, I don't restrict the, courses that you take.
That's good. So Tatiana, tell us for our current students who are right now, they're already taking the masters, what you will advise to do, because on May they will be looking for a job.
Sure. So I would say for those who are currently in the program, develop a healthy relationship with your professors and also with your classmates. I think that was really essential for myself coming into the program, knowing that this was a new program. I knew no one coming in, and I realized I really wanted to get acquainted with my colleagues and also with the professors who are going to be teaching those courses. Because once you develop that relationship, Dr. Walker said knows already. I'm emailing her constantly. Hey, I'm getting ready to apply for this job. Do you mind writing this recommendation for me? Or can you give me pointers on what is my next steps? That in itself really helps. And then you're leaning on your colleagues as well who are in different fields. I've had colleagues who were already working at the UN who were able to help me when I was developing out my cover letter and applying to a program or internship with them. I had colleagues who were already working in the field of criminal justice, who worked at other organizations. So you have your resources right there. And like it was mentioned earlier, the program is very flexible. So developing a plan for yourself is one, and breathe, right? Because it could be a very, very overwhelming process being in a master's program and working full time, but also utilizing what your resources are right in front of you. I think that was just really essential, and it's important because you'll know moving forward when it's time to graduate, you have your colleagues who you can speak to. One thing that I did coming in was creating a group chat, and this group chat, everyone loves it because we're in it and we're speaking about the classes. Hey, what course is coming up next? What time is this class? What assignment is due? And this WhatsApp group chat has grown over the years that I've over the 2 years. But constantly, as new people join, I look for them and I say, hey, are you a human rights student? And then we just add them to that chat, which is really useful as well. Because if you're missing class, you can go and ask somebody about that there. So
that's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah,
tips.
thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. So yes, your group chat, networking, talk with your professors, talk with your alumni, go to these activities that we do online and enjoy the moment, really enjoy the moment. So thank you very much, Tatiana. Thank you, Professor Walker said.
Thank you.
And I will see you next week, everybody. Have a
Okay.
beautiful day.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye.